From a flightless simulator at Ferris Air to a momentous meeting in an alley to the complex mind of an architect to every far sector in space and to the brilliance of the central power battery on Oa. This is the podcast that covers the adventures of all of your favorite ring slingers. This is the Emerald Echo with your hosts, Adam and the Emerald Enthusiast.
Welcome to another episode of Multiverse Musings, the vidcast. As always, I'm your host, Adam. And with me is the Emerald Enthusiast himself, Donnie. Donnie, how's it going?
Hey, what's up, comic book fans? It's the man whose ring runs on fanboy energy. It is the Emerald Enthusiast, and we're here with a special guest.
We are. If the audience watching can at least see our special guest listing, you're going to have to kind of wait for the intro, which I will pass over to Donnie. Donnie, do your thing. Take it away.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and all beings of the Omniverse, please welcome the writer of Green Lantern War Journal and the Incredible Hulk. He has ascended in 2 universes, Mr. Phillip Kennedy Johnson.
What an intro. Thanks, guys.
I don't know how you do that at 9 o'clock on a Saturday. I need a couple more cups of coffee to do that, but welcome back, sir. It's a pleasure to have you here once again.
Thanks, man. It's a pleasure to be here.
The last time we had you visiting was for your early on in your Action Comics run, which is wrapping up soon, but I'm still loving it. So, but you're sticking around in the DC universe, also in the Marvel universe, so we get more of your stuff, which is always good. And we're here to talk about some of it today. So, Donnie, take it away. Give us the first question.
All right, let's jump right in. So, sir, Adam and I really like that the main relationship here in Green Lantern War Journal is between John and his aging mother. When and how did you decide to implement this into the story?
This all kind of goes back to my my mission statement for the book, is to make John feel like a more well-rounded, fleshed out character, I guess. There's an awful lot of DC fans who got to know John through the animated show and got to know him primarily as kind of a like the former military guy, and that's like his prominent characteristic. But there's so much more to him than that, man. I've always wanted to know more about his. Sometimes there's the relationship with his mom that is kind of hinted at. She was the civil rights leader that he was very inspired by. There's the sister who at some point died. There's like we get these little echoes of his family. And of course, when he first showed up, he was an architect, and now he's kind of been, at some point, he was kind of overwritten as a former Marine. There's just so many different facets to him, and I want to get to know him better. And there's so many elements to Superman that people know, and to Batman, and to lots of other characters. But John, to me, has not ever been explored quite as fully. And this was a great chance to do that. So, the name of the book is War Journal. And so I'm going to try to keep that promise. There's some big stuff coming. I wanted it to feel like kind of like the action movies of the 80s, movies like Predator and Alien and Terminator and those things. I want to have those big, awesome action set pieces. And I think John is the kind of character that can hold up a movie like that. But there has to be these emotional elements too that make you give a shit.
Yeah.
And to me, the way into that was to introduce his mother more fully. So yeah, I wanted to see the civil rights leader mother that inspired him to be what he became,
Right.
So he's in a place now where he's just back from this crazy, huge cosmic adventure that he was on in the Jeff Thorne run. And now the Green Lanterns are, at least the Guardians Green Lanterns, are no longer a thing. Now the UP is kind of taking them over. The United Planets have kind of taken over that whole thing. And one thing that I learned about John from talking to Jeff Thorne is that he regards John as somebody, in his mind, John Stewart is not somebody who intends to die in the saddle. Like he thinks that John is somebody who's going to approach being a Green Lantern more like a service member, where they would do their time and then get out and continue to live their life as a civilian afterwards. I thought that was really interesting because most superheroes, I kind of see them as just being that that thing all the way through. Like they're never not going to be in the uniform or the costume.
Right. Yeah.
But in his mind, John was somebody who would do his time of service and then go on, and there was a lot more to him that would be explored after that.
Yeah. Okay. So you said John would retire someday.
Yeah, that was Jeffrey's take, that he would retire someday.
Okay.
And I thought that, well, what if this is the time right now? Because I wasn't sure I agreed, but I don't know. At the time, I did not know John nearly as well as Jeffrey did, and I was still kind of figuring out my take on what John was going to be and what he was going to do. Mm-hmm. But the more I think about it, I could see John as somebody who intended to retire, but then he's like, maybe he's done with the ring, but the ring's not done with him, kind of thing. And I wanted to explore that. I wanted to see him come back from this crazy cosmic adventure, and then suddenly he realizes the core is becoming something that he could no longer be a part of, or something he didn't believe in the way he used to. And at that same time, he's needed at home. His mother is going through end of life stuff, and he's like, well, this is my time to step away. So at that time, we get to see him kind of struggle with what his next thing is. Like, he's trying to do the mundane stuff that you do as a caretaker, just, drive the truck, getting groceries, fixing the sink, doing these little mundane things, having to wait at red lights. And that's something that service members have to struggle with anyway. Like when people go to a war zone and then come home, so many people come home, man, and die in like motorcycle accidents or suicide, or like, cause they're just so used to things being ramped up to 11 all the time, where there's no safety, like you're in just 360 degrees of danger all the time. When you come home, or like every time you get into a vehicle, you drive a Humvee or a Raptor or whatever, and it's like an adventure every time. Like you got to get from A to B. There's going to be IED someplace, or someone's going to be taking shots at you. There could be RPG could come out from a hole at any moment. Like that's what driving feels like, right?
Wow.
And then you come home, and they have to go to Lowe's, and it just feels all wrong. Like it's like everything's so quiet, like creeps you out, and people just they're not comfortable unless they're,
how do you dial it down to 4 from 11?
Yeah. So I wanted to see someone like Jon Stewart struggle with that, or he's used to doing these crazy things on other worlds, like flying through the cosmos, and then he's got to sit and wait 45 seconds at a red light. He's just going out of his mind trying to fix things, but he can't even. He needs problems he can shoot at, So I wanted to see him go through that and try to tell himself, no, I'm a civilian now. I can let go of this. I can be this other thing that my mom needs me to be. But he's dealing with something he's never had to deal with before. And at the same time, another one of those cosmic threats that he's always been dealing with has found him, and he doesn't know it yet. So I want to see him balance his devotion to his duty to his family against his duty to the multiverse, as this great hero that he's been chosen to become.
Yeah. Well, I really like that idea that you're exploring Jon Stewart, the son.
Yeah.
Rather than
thanks.
Yeah, rather than just jump into another relationship, with a woman or whatever. I realize that that's kind of time tested and true. But I like this idea that you're exploring that relationship. It feels very different and very authentic.
Yeah, thank you.
The stuff with the mom is really powerful. Just because I had a grandmother that I recently lost to dementia, so when I see that stuff, it like I can understand what he's going through, like moments where she forgets and stuff, and he has to kind of like hear the same story over again. Yeah, but it's very authentic, and I appreciate how you handle that.
Well, thanks. I mean, that's stuff that many of us have to deal with, right? It's just a heartless condition. And I want to see how our heroes deal with problems like that. Like John. I want to see John struggle. I mean, like I've heard that, I've been told by authorities, like, well, it's in the end, it's to kind of play along with their fantasies is doing them a disservice. Like, you're supposed to ground them and just kind of keep reminding them what the world is actually like and all that. But John has a hard time with that.
Reorienting. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. But John struggles with that. He's like, how do you tell his mom over and over and over and over again that his little sister's dead and has been for decades, So instead he's like, screw it, man. I'm just going to help her get through this. And he just makes a little construct of her. It's like, but we're going to see that's also a plot point we're going to see continue. See how John deals with something like he knows he's doing the wrong thing in theory.
Yeah.
But he turns he's a hero. It doesn't feel wrong to him. It feels like the kindness.
Yeah. No, it totally, like I said, the moments feel authentic and like realistic. And I think in a book that has so many sci-fi elements, to be able to do that only adds to the experience and lets the reader in a different way because you can't relate to battling, alien zombies or whatever. So it's like that's the way to get in, and it's done very well. Speaking of alien threats, how did you come up with the Revenant Dead? Like, tell us about how that came about.
Oh man, it started when I was writing the Warworld saga in action. There was a moment that you guys might remember in on Warworld in which there's this old storyteller that's telling stories about Superman to little slave kids there, and one of the stories talks about the Emerald Knights and how they had to face this immortal threat called the Revenant Queen. And the more I was fleshing out all these different ideas that I was going to have, oh my God, what's his name? Bila Esh talk about. And many of them were versions of stories we knew already, but we're going to have the game of telephone kind of element to it, where it's been told and retold over so many generations that it's a little different or it's a little sensationalized in some way. So like he tells the story of Superman versus Doomsday, but it's just a little different than the version we got back in the 90s. And what else did he? There was another version of a Superman story that we know. I can't remember which ones actually made it onto the page, because there were more than a couple. But then I wanted to work in other DC characters too, so I made up one about the Revenant Queen and the Emerald Knights, and how she was this conduit for this otherworldly evil light that kind of infects others, So it was inspired in part by a movie called Pontypool. You guys know that movie?
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Right. Yeah, I've heard of it. Yeah.
Great film. There's nothing about a Revenant Queen or Radiant Dead in there, but it's an infection that spreads through sound. I thought that was so creative. And it's something that was kind of rattling around in my brain. And I was like, what about an infection that spreads through light? And I just thought about this very, like, on its face. A couple people have reached out online, like, isn't this kind of like the Black Lanterns? I'm like, no, bro, you don't know what it's coming from though. Right. It's very different. It's very different. And we're gonna see how and why it's different later, like where it's actually coming from, like what's making them. But they don't have I shouldn't spoil it, but I'm pretty excited about it.
Yeah. Don't spoil
it. But just the concept of the Revenant Queen was just kind of a throwaway name that I then started to think more and more about. I was like, damn, I think this is actually really dope. I should flesh this out some more. And I kept thinking about it and where it might go and how it might tie into the Warworld saga too.
Awesome.
So I fleshed it out and I kept it. And then later on, I got the call, would you want to do a John Stewart story? I'm like, hell yeah, I would. And I know exactly what I'm going to use.
And now you had the villain or the antagonist. It really is a creepy concept, creepy character, and got to give credit to the artist, because I mean, like I always say, comics is an equal split between writer and artist, and so you can write the words and make it verbally intimidating and scary, but if the artist can't draw that, you don't have anything. So
exactly. People talk. I mean, right now we're in this time. Feel like we're in this time right now where the writers are getting more of the
seems like credit,
credit than the artists. And honestly, I think the only reason that's the case. Oh, I shouldn't say the only reason, but I think one prominent reason is that they don't really like to. Many of the artists I know well don't really like to talk about their work. Don't really like to talk about the books. Because the plot points and all that, and the character work and everything comes from the writer, and they like to talk about their ideas, and we're just we communicate more verbally. Artists just sit down and they make magic, man. They take the story. The writers are telling the artists the story so that they can tell the story.
Yeah.
And then they're the ones who actually bring the magic to life on the page. And just a crucial element, more important than us, in my opinion, but they don't usually like to talk about it, or they're just kind of doing their art on their own. So I don't know. The art, man, without Montos, this would look so different. Very often,
Yeah.
I do a thing. I'll write a thing, and the work will come back from Montos, like the layouts, just the basic versions, and I'll look at it and be like, man, I kind of did you a disservice here, and I'll make little changes. Sorry, I got to plug my computer in. I'll make little changes based on the thumbnails, the very basic sketches that I get from Montos. Like, man, I don't know, actually it doesn't work. Or he'll do this amazing thing. There's one really great moment in the first issue where Green Lantern Varon shows up and tries to arrest him and take his home and all that. And John does this like uppercut kind of motion, and there's this gigantic fist comes out of the ground, but it's not a fist, it's this gigantic mechanical thing. Mm-hmm. When in the original drawing, in the script, I asked for a much more abstract, crazy outcropping of technology to kind of shoot out of the ground. It was going to be a much different looking thing. And then the thing that Montos actually showed me just in the quick kindergarten sketch was a big fist. And I reached out to Montos and I was like, I wanted a fist was specifically what I wanted to avoid putting in there, because we've seen so many Green Lantern books where,
giant fist, yeah,
the giant boxing gloves, or the right. giant ping pong paddle, or the goddamn jet plane, like just the thing that looks like the ordinary thing that we all see very commonly, like just common ordinary items. I don't want to see a big bow and arrow or what. I make it something a little more crazy, now, especially from John is the thing, because John,
that's a good point.
The whole point is that he is this genius builder that he spent his entire life restricted by the restrictions of three-dimensional space. Like he envisions things that are impossible to do, but they're in his mind. And then he gets the ring and he's able to actually make these things. So how do you tell an artist to make things that no one could imagine? But I can't. So that's kind of where I drew the line, though, is like, well, let's not make it something ordinary. And so we talked back and forth about it, and what he ended up coming up, because he said that the abstract thing wasn't really playing. It wasn't clear what was happening. And that was totally fair. That was completely right. But then the giant fist was an overcorrection, in my opinion. So we kind of talked about what can we do, and he talked about this gigantic construct, not just construct of the ring, but a construct like a machine that would actually work in real life, that he creates just kind of on the spot. And that's what I want all of his constructs to look like. I want these things to look like he's building not just as an architect, but also as an engineer. Like he's putting things together in real time,
right, with
his mind. Whereas you're going to see the constructs of Shepard are quite different. He's more of a great reader. He's someone who loves to read. He's a musician and a lover of literature. So when Shepard makes constructs, they're going forward, they're going to be mostly these fantasy creatures. You're going to see a lot of not just like dragons, but things that, like, let's see, issue 3 is out, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
You're going to see like
available from DC Comics right here, Green Lantern War Journal number 3.
Hey.
I got you, man.
Those gigantic fantasy birds that don't look like anything in real life.
Yeah.
I love that stuff. I want to see something that's very unlike John's constructs, but that has a very clear style.
Yeah.
Montos has just been, instrumental in bringing that all together. So I've been paying a lot of attention to what Montos loves to draw, what he's great at. Not that he's bad at literally anything, but I see where the stuff that he really sinks his teeth into.
Tailor it to his strengths, I guess.
Yeah. That's a crucial part to making comics.
I like to shout out to the artists, especially when they work on Green Lantern, because I don't know how to draw, so far be for me to say, but it would feel like a Green Lantern book would be harder, just because the artist has to interpret something out of another character's imagination. So it's like, how do you do that? You know what I mean? So kudos to all of them that have to come up with new constructs every single time. I don't know if I could do that, even if I could draw. So, but yeah,
I know it's a big ask, and I honestly I have to. I know sometimes it's tempting for a writer to just kind of shorthand some bullshit out. And the reason is because the artist is just I feel stupid micromanaging an artist, be like, make it look just like this. Like I'm the expert because I'm just writing the words down. I feel like the artist is always going to be the better cinematographer and the better art director than I am. Mm-hmm. So there are times when I feel foolish trying to describe to them what to draw. Like when I'm writing out an action, like to choreograph an action scene or something. I'm like, man, I know this dude could do this better than me. But if I just send them something like, give me 2 pages of action. Sometimes it's tempting to do that kind of thing because everything I'm putting in is just placeholder. Because I want them to do. So anyway, the solution that I have come to over the years is, fully choreograph an action scene, give them everything they need, with the express permission written out. Like, I give you permission to mess with any of this stuff and do exactly what you think would make us look better. Right. I don't want to say, I don't really care. Just make them, big army rolls in and Green Lantern kills them all. I can't just write some throwaway thing. It needs to be, you need to respect the writer by giving them specific stuff to draw and not make them come up with everything, not make them do your job for you, but also give them permission to change shit if they think they can do something better, because invariably that's the case. Like their strength is the visuals. And whenever I make it super clear that I want them to have that control, they always take what I give them and find these little ways to tweak it to their strength, or to tweak it to make certain points of view much more effective. Or there was a great example of that, actually, was these 2 pages in Action Comics where, do you guys remember when Superman was trying to recruit? He was trying to get the Justice League to go to Warworld with him.
Yes.
Right. Yeah.
He's talking to Batman in Gotham.
Yes.
Like Gotham is on the hood of an SUV getting shot at, and Superman's just kind of flying along, hanging out with them while he's like, because he has that respect for Batman not to interfere. He's like, he doesn't need me. He's just going to get pissed at me if I try to. So he just kind of flies along and lets him handle it.
Yeah.
But while they're talking, there was a moment in which there was this really cool moment in which Batman kind of spreads out his cape over the windshield and the guy can't see. And the dude is inside the car, freaked out, just like unloading the machine gun into his face. And he misses, and Batman leaps off of the car. As Batman leaps off of the SUV onto the next SUV, the lead one smashes into like a light pole.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
There was a very specific moment in which I described to the letter Batman floating down at the next SUV from a certain point of view. And I can't remember why that mattered. There was some reason why that was important. Like there's something else in that same shot, like for the next, to tee up the next image or something. And when the layouts came back, the point of view was different, and Batman was seen from below, from a very different perspective than I had written. And it made that thing that I needed done not work. And I wrote Daniel about it. I was like, yeah, this kind of breaks this next beat. He was like, yeah, but it just looks so much cooler this way. And I looked at him like, yeah, dude, it does. So I had to, it required rewriting the whole 2-page spread to kind of make room for that beat somewhere else to make it kind of work.
Wow.
But man, it was worth it. I mean, that was the thing that made that one shot really work, and it wouldn't have otherwise. And I don't have Daniel's expertise. My expertise is very different.
Yeah.
So that's when you gotta actually make jazz out of this thing, and not just you can't just do your role and give it to them and like, oh, it's done. Now you do it exactly like I told you to.
It's my way or the highway. You can't do that.
Yeah.
It's
right.
They're not your art monkey. It needs to be a collaboration the whole way through.
Yeah.
So the more you collaborate like that, the better it ends up being.
Well, the collaboration's working, definitely, for sure.
Well, thank you, man. Montos is
definitely, yeah. So before I ask you question number 3, I just want to say that I hope McFarlane gives us a Lantern Shepherd figure. Anyway,
why did I know there was a toy mention coming at some point from you, Donnie?
That'd be dope, right? That's right. We gotta make Shepherd a star in this book.
Yeah,
yeah. Okay, so can you give us any insights into how the United Planets are operating and selecting Green Lanterns like Baron?
Man, I don't know how much I can say here. I know that Baron's going to be important going forward. Well, Baron is obviously, but also the guy in charge of the UP. I'll say that we've seen the Lord Premier of the United Planets already. His name is Tharos. He's a Durlan, and he appeared in the Warworld saga a few times. He's kind of a villain in that story. He's this sleazy politician that has spent his life kind of making shady decisions and deals. Like he comes across, he portrays himself, he projects himself as this, kindly old grandfather kind of figure, like very kind and self-deprecating and kind of funny and just like a nice old man. But then when something goes wrong, he flips out, and like you see, he's got this cruelty just like right under the surface. I'm really proud of that character. And he's running the United Planets right now. And Veron is also a Durlan. And he's the scion of a very wealthy family and all that. So it just made sense to me that now that the United Planets is kind of running the show and that this sleazeball is in charge, that there would be a lot of Nepo babies running around. So that's what Veron is. Veron is a Nepo baby. He's a guy that is from this. He was given that ring as like a favor to his wealthy family. So that ring did not choose Veron. That's important to know.
Okay.
Yeah.
He was given to him.
Yeah.
So I shouldn't say much more than that because it's
that's fair.
Veron and his boss are going to continue to be important, and not just in my book either. There's a spoiler for you.
Okay. All right. Interesting. And that's why, folks, Nicolas Cage changed his name so he wouldn't be a Nepo baby in Hollywood. But
I actually didn't know that. Who's this?
Yeah, apparently he changed his name. It's Coppola, right?
I forgot about
Coppola.
that.
Yeah,
I forgot that.
He changed his name to Cage because he liked Luke. Luke Cage was his favorite.
I knew
Marvel
that.
character.
But I forgot that. I forgot that he was a Coppola.
Yeah, so that's kind of funny that you mentioned the Nepo baby part of it. But you mentioned you had conversations with Jeffrey Thorne, the previous Jon Stewart writer.
Yeah.
Did that, aside from what you mentioned earlier, was there anything else that those conversations potentially changed your approach to writing the character?
The big thing. Honestly, probably the most impactful thing that he told me was that thing I mentioned, in which he saw him as somebody who would retire one day.
Okay.
He mentioned other things that I already kind of agreed with, like before, because I didn't just like go. I didn't want to disrespect Jeffrey by just not knowing anything about John, just calling like, so I don't know anything, catch me up. That's not his job. So I already had my opinions about John before I even called.
Okay.
And then he just kind of love bombed me with Jon Stewart stuff. He just loves Jon Stewart so much and talked about his history at great length. The only thing
I just hit a button on my phone.
No, I saw it and I was like, huh.
No,
who are you? Like you're a spy. I'm calling from the garage. I'm tied up.
Exactly. I'm really the one you're talking to right now is a Durlan. Please help me.
Jesus. This night took a crazy turn. All right.
Oh boy. Yeah. Doppelganger.
Sorry, what were we talking about? I forget.
We were talking about Jeff Thorne. And by the way, he's just a really nice guy.
Totally.
Yeah, he was.
Yeah, he loves the shit out of John. I know he had even more plans he wanted to do with John. He just had great. He loved. I mean, so my take on John. I can't even remember if I had this thought. I can't remember if I felt this way before that call, but it's certainly after. I just regard John as the consummate Green Lantern. No, that doesn't mean the best one. It means the one that was not the dark horse pick at any point. Like he was, somebody like Hal. Like it's when Sinestro first met Hal, Sinestro was like, "Who the fuck is this loser? Like, why did the Green Lantern ring choose this guy of all people? This loser is this is some huge mistake." And we've seen the Guardians kind of have the same opinion. And Guy Gardner, of course, is a huge dark horse pick. And I mean that one Guardian shows Kyle Rayner out of a friggin' alley, like it just is supposedly randomly, Jessica Cruz was chosen by the the coward ring, the whatever it's called.
Yeah, the
power ring. Yeah,
the
Power Rings ring picked her. So there's all these people that appear to be unworthy and then have to kind of show why they're special.
John is probably the most qualified now that you mention it.
Yeah, man. John Stewart is an architect, a warrior, like a devastating warrior, a brilliant architect.
Yeah.
You know, a great leader, a great tactician, a great fighter in his own right. He just has it all. And he also, his hero, like his ma and pa Kent is his mother, who was this amazing civil rights leader. He was, to me, his defining moment was the moment in the beginning in which he throws off his mask, where he's like, I got nothing to hide.
Right.
That's such an important moment. Like, because I mean, no one was doing that back then. Not even Superman. You know, right. Superman had Clark Kent. Everyone had a mask on.
Yeah.
He was like, screw this. My name is John Stewart. I'm Green Lantern. That's, to me, that makes him not just the consummate, like the obvious Green Lantern, the guy who was born to do it, but also kind of the consummate superhero in a way that just the fact that he is not hiding anything is like, I'm going to do the right thing and everyone's going to watch me do it. That's pretty amazing. So yeah, that's
great insight.
Oh, thank you. And that's another thing that I did not actually learn from Jeffrey. That was something I remember from the old days. As setting him apart. But I just remember how important it was. I love that Kyle Rayner is the artist. You know, like it just makes so much sense that the comic artist would, you know, the guy that has to be able to draw anything, would be an amazing choice just for the act of making constructs. You know, he has to kind of find his courage and figure out how to be a hero, but he's just this unbound creativity. And I mean, John has that too, but he's also got he's got the fighting cred of Guy Gardner at the same time.
Right.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, and you found why, you know, people always ask me, they're like, you know, who's your favorite Green Lantern? And I'm like, I like them all because they all have their own interesting aspects. And each one, you know, the way they interact and use the ring is different. And it's always interesting, you know?
Yeah. I love that Hal was my Lantern growing up. And I thought, I mean, he's so cool because he was not the obvious choice. And he has to kind of prove himself. He's like, whatever, I'm not afraid of shit. Let's do this. I'll show you why I'm the best. And he's this fighter pilot's not scared of anything, but he's also reckless, you know?
Right.
it makes him really fun. It makes him a really fun choice that he's just not afraid of anything. And he'll just, you know, that's what made him one of the GOATs. But it's also really fun to have somebody like John Stewart who is just born to do it.
Yeah. And now that you were talking about him, it's like, yeah, he really is the most obvious choice for them to choose. If you're going to give this caliber of a weapon to it, be him, right? So, yeah.
That's my take.
Well put.
Well, we can't wait to read more of War Journal, Adam and I. So
it's
thank you. I'm pretty excited. I love it.
It's been fantastic. It's great.
I'm getting all the variant covers too.
Oh, thanks, man. I appreciate that. There's some good ones.
That's from my end. That's what sucks about buying it digitally is they only include the variant covers, and I'm like, what's the harm of including that extra couple of pages? Like, what's it costing? It's like, just put the scans in there. Why not?
And if we do get that Shepherd figure, I can add him to the thousands of Green Lantern figures I have surrounding me in this room.
Oh, that's amazing, dude.
That room is insane. I'm planning to steal some figures. But I just got to find the right time when he's not home.
I got him recorded. That when I have to go to the police, I'm like, here's the podcast.
I got to send it to you. So exactly. Before I send it, I'll just scrub that from the recording.
This one from Dark Knight Returns is that's the only figurine I have. That's my only
insane one too. That's awesome.
No, thank you.
I love that style.
I mean, you can still buy it wherever. It's not like it's a rare thing, but I do love it.
Yeah, it's awesome.
All right. Well, we also have another green person to talk about here, the Hulk.
Yeah.
Let's jump into questions about that.
Let's do it.
So, sir, you seem to like infusing horror into your comics. Were there any specific horror influences for this run of Hulk?
Why, yes. Hellboy.
Oh, okay.
Anything else? I love Mignola stuff. I love the way he incorporates folklore and Lovecraft and just ghost stories, but also real history. Like I don't know, man. I just love that vibe. I love the blue collar guy who's just kind of walking the earth like Kane from Kung Fu and these things, these elements of folklore and legend and myth kind of just find him, you know, because he's one of them. He thinks he's one of us, but he's one of them. And I love that.
Yeah.
So, and I also really love Southern Gothic kind of horror. I love folk horror, that kind of stuff. And honestly, the hardest part of writing this book was how do I make it different from the Al Ewing run? Because I love that goddamn book.
It was so good. Yeah, it was so good.
Immortal Hulk was just so good. And I mean, in the secret sauce was just to bring it back to its roots and make it a monster book like it was initially supposed to be.
Yeah, yeah.
So he goes back to the stuff where Hulk comes out at night. Like that's the thing that was in the original Hulk story. He was the thing that come out at night. He was such a clear, like Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde, / Frankenstein.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was just really fun. So it was a really fun book, but that was more like kind of Cronenberg horror, like very body horror-y, very kind of like dark, like black science, like a creepy laboratory kind of horror.
Right.
And in the end, I found my heart kind of leaning towards the more mystical, like folk horror stuff. So instead of dark laboratories and things like that, it was more like Potter's fields and things that crawl out of rivers and that kind of stuff. Is a very different kind of thing, called like abandoned coal mines. That's a very different kind of vibe. So that's where the whole thing kind of went, while also mixing it up. And it's still a Hulk story, so I try to bring out the elements of the old Bixby show where he's just kind of on the just walking,
Which I love because I used to watch. I mean, it was on. I guess the later run was on when I was born, but I remember my mom used to watch it, and when he would transform, as ridiculous as this sounds, it would scare the crap out of me as a kid. To the point where I was hiding behind the couch, and I'm like, now I think about it, I'm like, it's just Lou Ferrigno in pain. Like, how was I scared of this? Like, why was I scared of this? But back then,
it's a different time, man. It's impossible to watch it now with the eyes of from that time.
Like I still watch it and get a kick out of it, but it's
yeah, I mean, Mark Waid said something really interesting about Superman, in which like that first cover of Action Comics where he's lifting a car and smashing it. Back then, that wasn't something people saw all the time. Right. That was like this really special image. Like, whoa, what is happening? Who is this guy? What's he wearing? What's he doing? This is crazy. Now it's just that stuff is so omnipresent. It's just impossible to see it with the eyes of a kid from that age.
Right. Yeah. No,
so that's kind of the same thing. It's the same thing with the Lou Ferrigno Hulk. It's like, what the hell is this?
But I love that wandering aspect that you have him doing in this book, because every time he's walking somewhere, in the back of my head, I hear that theme from the show. It's like, here we go. It's like,
that's cool. That's nice to hear, actually.
No, but what's funny is I often, when I read comics, I'll put like a movie or a show soundtrack on based on the character that I'm reading.
Well, that's dope. That's a really thoughtful way to approach the book. That's cool.
So what I'll do is I had that on a loop in the background as I was reading some of the issues, and I'm like, okay, it fits, it works.
Oh, good.
So
yeah, I mean, it does kind of work, I guess. Like at the beginning of issues 2, 4, and 6, all kick off new storylines in different places. Yeah. It's kind of like this love letter to horror, but also to America. Like you show these different places. The one that we're about to introduce after, so the current story takes place in Texas.
Yeah.
But after that, there's one that takes place in New Orleans.
Oh, that'll be interesting then.
Yeah, it was going to be someplace else. There's this other town that I know that would have been a good fit, but I was like, man, this just doesn't. I don't know. Like the other places that we're showing are so distinct visually. I'm like, no, it's got to be someplace that kind of pops more. And it just had to be New Orleans, especially for the story that we were telling. Just made a lot of sense. So
and it's cool because like the town hopping, city hopping, which of course he did all the time in the show. It also reminds me of another show that I used to watch, Supernatural. So it's like it's got those vibes too. It's like, okay, what's going to happen this issue? So it really adds to the new town adds to the story, right?
I hadn't thought about that show, but you're totally right. Supernatural did that too. I have not watched that show in a while. I watched the first 3 or 4 seasons.
Well, it went 15 years. I don't blame you for dipping off. It's kind of hard.
Yeah, I got out. I borrowed the DVD sets from somebody. Yeah. Maybe we bought those. I can't remember. But it was great. It did get a little formulaic for me. Like it started to get kind of repetitive, and eventually I was like, okay, I know what's going to happen. And
it definitely does get that way for sure.
There's so many so many episodes. It's impossible not to. I mean,
to repeat yourself. I
I can see the writers like, okay, season
What are we
9,
gonna-
what are we gonna do?
Especially 22 episodes. It's like, really? Like, if it was 10 a season, maybe, but
Sure.
22 is like,
they clearly were trying
damn,
to,
what are we gonna do?
with any kind of serial storytelling, you kind of have to balance, like, what are we doing? Are we doing a story of the month kind of thing, or story of the week thing? Or are we doing, or are we making it a whole arc where you've got to pick up every single issue to see the next one? Man, I really wanted this story to be, I wanted this particular Hulk series to be one where you're not screwed if you miss a couple. You know, like I want somebody to pick up, you know, like years from now, many years from now, I want some little kid to pick up Hulk number 6 and be like, this is awesome. And I don't need to know anything else. I can just read the book and not need the other ones. I mean, to tell the really awesome stories, I have been taking about 2 or 3 issues per arc.
Yeah.
But ideally they would all be one shots. And I'm gonna try to do more one shots. Huh?
It's a cool way to approach, because now it's like for me, like reading action is cool because I've been doing it for years. So if I'm strapping in for your 3-year run, great. Like I'm on board for it. But I can imagine some, 5 or 6-year-old, like, who's this? What, like, I got to pick up issue 10, 60, whatever number it is.
I know.
Like, what?
That's honestly, that's not the way we did action. We did action like especially the War World saga. That story went on for a long time.
Yeah, right,
I was mindful of that when I was doing it. I was like, yeah, this is not that thing. But I really wanted Hulk to be like that, where you could just jump in and
it works
and
for
read
it. It definitely adds to the I think adds to the mystique. Like, it works for that character. Like, taking him to different locations too.
There's a couple of one shots coming up I'm really excited about.
Okay.
Like, I don't mind seeing Hulk outside of New York. Like, take Batman out of Gotham, and I kind of take it. Not that I take issue with it, but it's like, why is he not in Gotham?
Exactly.
With the Hulk, just put him anywhere and go for it.
Batman is Gotham, in a way that almost no other character is. I mean, Spider-Man is arguably New York too.
Yeah, absolutely.
But Batman is Gotham in a way that it doesn't make sense to take him anywhere else. Now, I say that knowing that Jason Aaron's doing Batman Off-World right now, and I understand I know that
also works too. Like, the first time he encountered an alien being, sure, I'll go along with it. Right?
There's a bajillion Batman stories in which he's elsewhere, but to me, he just feels like Gotham. But,
exactly.
Hulk is this thing that belongs in
everywhere,
scary place.
Yeah, exactly.
And I just want to say that you confirmed something for me, because you mentioned Lovecraft. Those first couple issues, I even mentioned this on the last podcast, I got Dagon vibes from.
Oh, cool.
And I was like, I wonder if he, if he was thinking about Lovecraft here, because that's what instantly came to my mind was Dagon.
Yeah.
There's some stuff. Yeah, there's some. You're talking about Brother Deep, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, man. God, I don't know. I love the idea that they're like every monster that's ever come from Earth. They're all like, they share this lineage,
Yeah.
So I went back and read a lot of the stuff about the history of where the Earth came from, according to Marvel, and looking for any kind of little crack in which something like I found an element of those origin myths about where the Earth came from and the creatures that were around back then, with Gaia and Set and all the others. And there's a big question that is not answered in those myths. And I was like, what if we answered it here? What if this, without spoiling it, that's
okay. Don't spoil. Yeah.
No, I won't. But that's when we reveal everything about who the Mother of Horrors is and what Eldest is and everything, it's going to tie in nice with the rest of the Marvel stuff.
Awesome. One of the characters that I find interesting is Charlie. So is she going to be a long-term character in your run, or you have a specific plan for her, an end game for her, or?
Sure do.
All right.
I mean, I will say, I don't, like, they asked me for like 12 issues of story for Hulk as far as like outline of where we're going. I gave them way more than that.
Okay, good.
And they're totally fine with it. So I don't know what issue in which will be done with Charlie. Because because of the kind of the modular approach that we're taking with the issues, where like it's this, now we're doing, so we had the Brother Deep story, and then we have the Swamp Witch story, and now we're doing the War Devil story with Ghost Rider 44.
Yeah.
And then there's these other ones I can't talk about yet. But if we needed to add some or take some away, there is like a very slow moving arc in which we see Charlie develop.
Okay.
But there's not like a certain specific number of of issues in which Charlie is good for. Like we could see her for 20 issues or 120.
Okay.
Interesting.
But I definitely have a general direction I like to send her in.
Okay.
And also not just her, but the way that she interacts with Hulk and Banner.
Yeah, I love the interaction. That's the it's part of the fun of the whole thing, because when you introduce her, like, she's very like gung ho about it. She's like, oh look, he's an Avenger, he's a superhero. he's doing everything. He's like, that ain't me, or like, I don't know if it's Banner or the Hulk telling her, like, that's not what you're in for here. Get out, leave. Like, do yourself a favor, get out. Like,
yeah, she's got that cap patch on her backpack.
Yeah.
Like she always kind of had these fantasies about Captain America coming to that shitty little town that she was in, and getting her out of her abusive house.
Yeah.
Like Cap's going to come and take me away. We're going to go on adventures together. I'm going to be the new Bucky. And then Cap does show up, but it's not Cap. It's Hulk.
Yeah, it's Hulk. Yeah, and then
he becomes her new hero. You know, it's
yeah.
like, it's the strongest thing I've ever seen. So then she's all in on Hulk. Then
one of the other really cool aspects of the book that I enjoyed was when she finds her I guess her brother in the lake, or that moment there, and Hulk can see that she's depressed, upset. So I felt like he was allowing Banner to come out to console her. Like, there was almost that resignation. He's like, all right, this is like, I'm tagging. It's almost like I'm tagging you in. Take care of her.
That was exactly it. He's like, I'm part of this.
All right.
Yeah, Hulk is like, this is not what I care.
And you could see it in the art, like the way, like, Hulk's demeanor, like the head sort of slouched. It's like, you don't normally see Hulk like that. So it's like, wow, like, that's what we're talking about with Green Lantern. That's where the art could really sort of enhance a moment, right? Like,
totally.
Yeah.
And that flows right into our next question. The transformations in this series are especially gory and painful for Hulk and Banner. Is that something that you came up with to reflect their increasingly hostile relationship?
Yeah.
Okay.
That was one reason, yes. Another reason is that I like the transformations that we saw in the Immortal Hulk run. And when they came to me to write that book, and I was trying to figure out, I was in bed with the covers up to my chin, like, what am I going to do? I was thinking, I was like, well, we could go harder. What if we went harder? Because that was by far the most horrific Hulk we've seen. I was like, what if we went way harder? I love the transformations already, but I was like, I don't know, man. I think we could do more. And there were things that I wanted to see. I don't think we quite respect how painful those would be. You're putting on an awful lot of mass awfully quick. And bones are breaking and teeth are exploding, and like skull plates are like either crushing in or popping out, and everything's just like just a nightmare. And I want to see that. I want to see him, like, when he contracts back down. Like, I want to see him puking up a deer, and like, just, waking up in like in a pool of like sludge that he just puked up, and like his skin's all saggy, and his bones are all like dislocated and just awful. Like, and I thought this was a book in which we could kind of just level up. The way that this is maybe not the most obvious comparison, but when Todd McFarlane took over Spider-Man, he took the webs that before that everyone had just been like straight lines, a little bit of gray over the top. And then he's like, no. And he shows like every little strand, and it's like they're all going all kind of zigzag.
Yeah, they're jumping off the page to the point.
It just made it so much more 3D, so much more interesting. And it was
they call it the spaghetti webbing.
It must have been such a hassle, but it just looks so cool. And now every artist that ever does Spider-Man ever again has to do that now,
because you can't go back.
There's things about Hulk I want to do the same way. Like, I want his transformations to be like really eye-popping. Like, I want readers to be like, oh my God, he's doing it. I want to see. And that's what we're doing. And I'm trying to put one in every single issue. Ideally, a 2-page spread in every issue of a crazy transformation, and they're getting worse as we go.
Yeah, I remember. It's funny you say that, because when I saw the transformation in 6, I think I tweeted out something to the effect of, this is the most disgusting transformation I've ever seen. And then I put in the best possible way, because Decline
Yeah.
did a great job with it. But it's like, wow, like that's gross.
It's great,
So
right?
gruesomely gorgeous. Yes, I
Yeah,
love
Yeah,
it.
yeah, that's it, exactly. Yeah.
I wanted to I posted the script page from it so people could see what I
Yeah.
wrote. Nick, and that's another example of the artist like just stepping away from the script a little bit, like just making little changes and just making it so awesome. I did not describe. I said something about like there was a panel in which, let's see, I described a panel in which Banner's head kind of splits apart and you see Hulk's head kind of coming through it, and he did it with the mouth. And that's not quite what I envisioned, but it's so more. It's just great because they're still sharing eyes at that moment.
Yeah.
But like you see, his mouth is being stretched way beyond what it can actually do, and Hulk's mouth and nose are coming through it.
Yeah,
it's just so unbelievably effective.
I mean, if they ever did these in live action, they'd have to be rated R because it's like how else do you
exactly
how else do you show it, right? It's like
you'd have to obscure a lot of it.
So basically, what I'm saying is we're never going to see that in live action because they're never going to do that.
I don't know, man. I don't know.
I hope.
I mean, they made rated R Deadpool.
All I want to know, all I want to see is the next time we see Hulk in live action, can we make him a little bit scary? Like, just come on. I want scary Hulk. I want monster Hulk. Like,
that's the hope, man. Like, I think that now if Marvel wants that, they'll be able to make the case to Marvel Studios. Like, look, the books, the books that they've responded to are immortal, and now this thing.
Yeah.
I mean, look at the pages. You know, so I feel like that would be dope. I mean, when they announced, I know this movie ended up not being good, but when they did
Ragnarok,
Generation X or whatever it was. See, I mean, the movie turned out to be kind of whatever, but when people saw that trailer, it was like, oh my god! Like I was really excited.
Yeah.
I was really excited to see that take.
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like fans would respond to it.
Oh, I think so.
I think obviously I'm biased because this is the stuff that I love. I love this kind of thing, and there are so many superhero characters that I feel like lend themselves so well to that kind of treatment.
Yeah, for sure.
Anyway, but Hulk more than anyone. I mean, that was the whole point of Hulk in the beginning.
Yeah, I mean, Stan Lee even said it. He talked about Jekyll and Hyde and Frankenstein's monster, and it's like, yeah, and then like. That's what you were saying. We saw it in Immortal, and we're seeing it in Year Run. Like we're seeing that more, that type of Hulk, and I think that's again, not that the Hulk in live action has been bad. There's been instances where he's been good, like the first couple Avengers. But it's just it's too comedic. It's like don't make him a joke. He's not supposed to be the joke.
Yeah, the touchstone elements that I wanted to show in this book were kind of the Hellboy approach of like the monster kind of walking the earth, like just finding things without wanting to.
Yeah.
Seeing Hulk fighting monsters, like it's a monster book about Hulk fighting monsters. Every issue or every like arc, you're gonna see a big duke 'em out issue between Hulk and some monster. Very, very short arcs where readers can just jump in and jump out with no worries about having to read every single thing that came before that. Which thank God for that, because now it's hard to get the early issues.
Yeah.
By the way, you're talking about the New Mutants.
That's it. Yes,
that's what I meant. Yes, thank you. New Mutants is what I meant. That movie, I was really hopeful that movie would be incredible because
it had some potential. It had some potential, but I think it just got lost in the merger.
It sounded like there were some real production issues. Different visions for what it was supposed to be.
Yeah, which is a shame because it looked like it had some promise there for sure. We always like to end on a fun kind of question. So, you being the current writer of the Hulk, is there any what's the most Hulk-like exercise you do in your workout routine?
Hulk-like exercise?
Yeah.
Fight living humans.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, awesome. I remember you mentioned you were doing some. Yeah, the last time we had you on, you talked about some fighting training.
Yeah, so honestly, I'm not doing much sparring these days, but I am. But man, I've got about a year left in the Army, and then I'm going to retire.
Okay.
Lately, I'm getting older. I'm spending a lot of time mostly doing hypertrophy training. I'm doing a lot of weightlifting and trying to put on a little last bit of muscle mass before I start to inevitably wither. But when I get out of the Army, I'm going to start spending a lot of time on the mats, and I'm really excited about that. Like for a while, I was rolling like every day almost, and I loved it. But as I got busy, as the comics career started taking off, and I had a son and everything else, I was going like 1 or 2 days a week, and I started, instead of being that guy who was like pushing the bar, I was turning into that guy that the good guys were like practicing on. And I was like, this kind of sucks. I don't have time to really do this well anymore.
Yeah.
So I kind of stepped away from it. But I still do a little bit, and in another year or so, I'll start to get to do it a lot. I still do bag work. I still like do Muay Thai, boxing on a bag, and I teach my son, but I'm not roughing him up. He's just a little.
Obviously, there's only so far you can go when you're teaching your son. It's like,
I never put hands on him. I do bag work mostly.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess the Hulk like exercise I do would be bag work and sparring. The rare cases I get to do it, but that's about the level.
And driving in traffic. Let's call that a Hulk like exercise. It tests your patience for sure.
Yeah.
So but Donnie, anything else you wanna ask or say before we let Phillip?
No, that was my last question. Is I really wanted to know like about his workout routine, if he got in there and had any like Hulk like motivation in the gym. So
no, the guys who slam their weights down after the sets, those are douchebags. We try not to do that.
I never do that. I never scream or anything when I'm in the gym. When I
yeah, sometimes. Well, okay, I will say when I'm doing that stuff in my home gym,
it's different.
I will have some Hulk-like moments in my home gym where I'm doing like a dead. I have like a hex bar that I do on deadlifts to avoid. I've blown out my lower back way too often, so I don't go heavy on lower back exercises like straight bar deadlift anymore. Mm-hmm. But I've got a hex bar deadlift because that's much less accident prone or injury prone, I should say.
Oh yeah,
and I do tend to go pretty aggressive on that. So you do get a little burst when you shout like a douche.
Yeah.
So I do kind of grunt and groan and make some noise in my home gym when no one's around. So I guess those are my most Hulk-like elements.
Right,
I guess.
Fair enough. Yeah.
I do know that there's been a few times I've gotten looks like I'm doing like the last heavy set and I need a little bit of burst, and so I'm whispering the Green Lantern oath underneath my breath, and people, what is that? And I'm like, brightest day.
Dude, that's a fan right there.
Oh, he's always repping. Every time he posts a photo directly from the gym, he's always repping something Green Lantern.
Dude, that's incredible. Honestly, thank you for your service. That's pretty awesome.
And if I'm not wearing my hockey team stuff, it's usually a Superman shirt or a Batman shirt that I'm out in. And if I have to get dressed up, it's like, damn it, I can't wear my shirts.
I dressed up for you today.
There you go.
Dude. Oh man, I'm honored.
I need a couple of those comic book related ties. I need some of that. Yeah.
Let me ask you. All right then. How did you feel about the new oath that we did for the alternate universe?
Wow.
You know what? I love the alternate oaths. And any kind of like different reflection of that oath, because it's not always the same for all lanterns. Like Lot Fan, who can't see, he has to have a different oath too. So it's not set in stone forever. And also Alan Scott's was different.
I know.
So different characters can reflect that in different ways. So
cool. I just wanted to make sure that I wanted to see if it lived up to your expectations.
Oh yeah.
And it's cool. It's interesting when you're reading, because now we've got more than one Green Lantern book. So if the oath comes out of one, like if you read them back to back, which is what I usually do, like I usually pile them up and then go. So if one says one oath, then you go to the Alan Scott book and it's like, wait a minute, what? Well, like, did I miss something? And then you're like, oh, wrong, different Green Lanterns. So it's like you can't get your bearings. Which one am I reading? It's like,
sometimes when I'm signing a book, a Green Lantern book, sometimes I'll put an inscription from the new oath, like I am the lantern in the dark or something.
Yeah. I was anticipating that because I saw you mention it on some social media that there was a new oath coming, and I was like, oh, I can't wait.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
The best part
I've got a very old friend who's been a Green Lantern fan forever. And when I told him I was doing new oath, he was kind of pissed at me. And I was like, well, no, it's not going to replace.
How dare you?
No,
it's just an alternate reality thing. It's okay.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Anyway.
Well, thank you for coming on again and visiting us and talking about the books. We look forward to reading more War Journal, more Hulk. So if you want to, anything you want to plug, and then tell us where you can find you on social media.
Well, Action Comics is still coming out. I'm writing through Action 1060, which comes out this month, and then the annual also comes out after that. And that's the real finale of my Action Comics run. Is the Action Annual 2023. And yeah, stay tuned for another announcement for what I'm doing next year after that. And of course, we're still see my last issue of James Bond 007 for King and Country just came out. Let's see, Green Lantern War Journal coming out monthly. Incredible Hulk coming out monthly. I'm doing a creator-owned book right now that's coming out next year. Nice. I'm super stoked about that. It's another vehicle for my dark fantasies.
Awesome.
So I can't announce what it is yet or where, but it's going to be cool. I'm really excited about it.
Yeah, looking forward to that.
And yeah, aside from that, just finishing up my Army career so I can do more of this kind of stuff.
Perfect. Awesome. Glad to hear. And if where can they find you on social media? What platform do you use the best?
Oh God, yeah. So they're all kind of like rats in the sinking ship now, right? So they're everywhere.
Yeah.
I'm still on Facebook under my full name. I have my own website, phillipkennedyjohnson.com, where I try to keep my books updated. I'm on Twitter, X, whatever. I'm on Blue Sky and Instagram and Threads. And the stuff that's on Blue Sky, Threads, and X are all kind of the same thing. So
yeah, they all kind of
mostly just like cloned comments on those.
Yeah.
But on most places, either my full name or at Phillip K. Johnson with 2 L's in Phillip.
Awesome.
All right.
Well, again, thanks for joining us. We really appreciate it. And
yeah, it's great seeing you guys again.
Yeah.
Hope people buy the books, enjoy the books, and
congratulations on your impending retirement too.
Yes,
thank you so much.
Absolutely.
I appreciate that. And thanks for your patience. Gonna be back on too, man. I just cannot keep up with the workload. So I really appreciate your patience.
Hopefully, when the next book is announced, or the next books, when those start coming out, we'll have you on and we'll talk about those too.
I love that. Thank you guys so much.
Awesome.
Right. Have a great night, sir.
Thanks, man. You too.
Have a good one.
Hello. I was like,
you'll edit that
out. No, I'm not going to edit that out. That might be funny. I don't know what you wanted me to say, but anyway, so we're here at the end, and we have let him go, and it was once again an honor to have him here on the show to talk about his creative genius. We love that so much. Obviously, Adam and I both huge fans of War Journal and the Hulk, and so we're just here now to end the show and give you our social media. You can find me on Twitter, I refuse to call it X, or TikTok as the Emerald Enthusiast. You can also find me on YouTube, that's Emerald Enthusiast, for lots of comic book related collectible reviews.
And they are great. I will shout out the Amazing Spider-Man 300 facsimile edition review that you just did. That was fantastic. So
thank you, sir. Yeah, there was a lot of my backstory in there.
Yes, so, it's the origin story of the Emerald Enthusiast, if you will.
A good way to put it.
Well, actually, in that case, it's the Venom Enthusiast, because that was the debut of Venom. So it's,
yes,
but it was very good. So definitely check that out. And all of Donnie's videos are very good. That's how I got him the job here. So might as well, you got him here. The only reason you're seeing and listening to him is because of those videos. So check them out. If you want to track me down on Twitter, because I ain't calling it that either, because there's only two things I associate with X, and that's the X-Men and the Generation X. So take that for what you will. But you can follow me on Twitter.
I didn't know where you were going with that. But
well,
anyway.
if they want me to call it X, something is coming that they might not like. But on Twitter, it's at Adam_LeesFan. We also have a Facebook group, which I will link the description to below. Click that, and we can continue the conversation there. But until next time, remember that John Stewart, the Green Lantern, and the Hulk are both forever. From the first time they go green to the last. So long, everybody.
Green Lantern smash.